hope I don't offend Albanians or Greeks by saying it feels instantly like Greece. We sailed in Greece years ago. There's the eucalypt trees, also reminding us of Australia. They're imported weeds from Australia. And for some reason they paint the bottom of the trees white. So yeah, and this weather, big trees, just yeah, it feels very much like Greece.
Everything is slow now.
I know, yeah, we're in the Ionian and everything just seems a slower pace already. The locals, the tourists, us.
What do you think? I like it. You like it?
Told you like it jittery.
Oh yeah.
It's your first frappe?
Yeah.
And there's heaps of them in Greece as well.
I can't wait.
Can't wait. More frappe, please.
So now I put so a little bit of that in, and now it looks like beer.
Some frappe. It's a spider.
And the lemon is sunk to the bottom now.
See if it tastes any good.
Ooh.
Taste sensation.
It tastes better.
Tastes better. So, we've discovered in Slovenia and Croatia that you cannot buy Panadol at a supermarket or an ordinary pharmacy. You have to go to a dispensing pharmacy, like a special pharmacist. But twice when I asked, they said drink coffee with lemon, lots of lemon juice, and that's kind of what you've got. So that's your medicine for today.
Okay.
Apparently it will cure your headache.
It's a beautiful day at the beach, and after the long night, pretty much all we feel like doing. In the distance you can make out, that's Greece, that's Corfu.
Just over the way there is the mosque, and I was thinking as I was watching all the locals up and down this promenade that Albania feels like the least Muslim country that we've been to. There's alcohol, lots of places, and a fair bit of skin on the beach, and also just walking around. Yeah, so it's just interesting. The very first day in each new country feels like a process of just absorbing what the place is about and working out what you like and what you don't like. And I reckon I like Albania.
And no matter where you are in the world, be it Bondi Beach in Sydney, Seminyak in Bali, or Sarande in Albania, people still prefer to be on their smartphones than chatting away with their friends, living in the moment. Just met some folks from North Carolina who've been coming here for 15 years. They just brought their grandkids. I don't know, anyone who brings, or anyone who comes to one place for 15 years, they obviously love it as well. It's even more chilled out than Budva.
Much more chilled out than Budva.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We've hired a car and we're off to Butrint, which is a very well preserved Roman ruin just south of Sarande.
Butrint has a long and interesting history dating back to the 8th century BC. So there's a nice neat depiction of it here. Here we've got what Butrint looked like in the 3rd century BC, Hellenistic. And then the Romans, 2nd century AD. This is Butrint at its biggest and most built up. There's an aqueduct. Then late Roman period, 6th century, the aqueduct was falling apart. Part of the town fell into disrepair. Medieval period, And then it became a really important place for the Venetians. So here's the 16th century, and they built a separate part at the bottom there that's a triangular fort. So you can see why they picked this spot to make a city, to make Butrint. There's the river and a really big agricultural plain in a country that's mostly hilly and dry and rocky. And a few miles out that way, across that little bit of sea, is Corfu, which was a really important spot for the Venetians for their trade. And they fought the Ottomans, the Turks, for many years for control of Corfu. So this spot, Butrint, was part of their sort of stronghold to take over Corfu.
Butrint was founded in the 8th century BC in mythology by the refugees from Troy after their defeat by the Greeks. In the 3rd century BC, Butrint was conquered by the Romans. Its biggest development was under the great Roman Emperor Augustus around the time of Christ.
Here's two of the eras of this place right here. The big blocks are from the Greeks, 3rd century BC. The smaller blocks built over this site are from the Romans, so those archways over there. And the small blocks or bricks are joined by mortar. So Romans were the first to develop bricks and mortar. You can see lots of them are still standing from 2nd century AD. So Aidan, if we were here in the 300s, 4th century, this would have been a Roman senator's palace.
What's a senator's palace?
Senator's someone in the government.
Nero.
Not Nero.
He had a golden palace for himself.
Oh, that's a bit greedy, isn't it?
And it was after the Great Fire, and he blamed the Christians for the Great Fire.
Oh, that's not nice either.
It burnt down some of the Roman buildings.
Oh.
And he created it.
Yes. Not a nice person.
And then he murdered his cousin.
Oh, it gets worse.
Brother and even mum.
Aussi corinthien de Corinthe et ça nous prouve que
This is the baptistry where people were baptized. It was built in 6th century AD once this area, the Eastern Roman Empire, had evolved into Byzantium.
Butrint is also home to many endangered species, and this place is a Ramsar wetland, which means it's a special place for migratory birds. I was just reminded on a sign that the great naturalist Gerald Durrell wrote about finding creatures here in the river and the marshes in My Family and Other Animals. It's a book I read as a kid, so yeah, it's a pretty special place here, Butrint.
Generally, the reputation of Albania is at odds with what we've experienced. The people are very friendly, everyone's really nice. I hate to say it, but the roads are in line with the reputation. This is the main road out of Sarande, and we've almost been hit ahead twice.
In our second stop on the excursion, which is Girokaster, Old Town, the castle on top.
Whatever for you, buddy.
There's also these ones.
Yeah. Albanian shoes.
The entrance, the gate into the castle looks very imposing, just like every Balkan Eastern European castle should be.
What do you reckon, Aidan?
It looks very cool.
fortress was built by the Zinibishi clan in the 13th century
Who's
AD.
the Zinibishi clan?
Can't say. I know nothing more about it except that they built this castle. That's a really cool name, the Zinibishi.
I'm an ecologist by training many moons ago, and so when we travel I love to discover all the different plants and animals, and I think it's really important to share that with Aidan, who's grown up in the city. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
This clock tower was built upon the original foundations of the fortress, ordered by the warlord Ali Pasha. Gotta love that name, Ali Pasha. I bet it was something that was used to scare kids if they misbehaved back in the early 1800s.
Hey!
I love castles. What do you reckon?
They're hot.
Hot. Aidan's a bit hot. Especially love unkempt castles with plants growing everywhere and there's no railings, there's no do not step here, do not go here. Just go and explore and have a good time.
Was this after a plane crash?
They say it was an American spy plane.
Spy plane.
This is the darker side of the castle, literally as well as figuratively. So in the 1920s, King Zog ordered a bunch of prison cells to be made here, and then the communists incarcerated people here from 1944 to 1963 is what it says. Yeah, so there are several faces to this castle.
Let's go down.
You lead the way.
Tell you what, you wouldn't want to be in prison down there. It's just a bit cold, damp.
No, it's cool. It's cool in this when you have been in the sun for about 10 million days, like me. And when my veins don't go up.
There is always a positive. On a very hot day, it's nice and cool.
Yeah, down here. I just said that.
Nice and breezy. Alright, let me duck in here, Aidan. Thanks.
That bowl, but it wasn't a bowl. So I had others.
Here are some of the answers to the questions we had about religion in Albania. There's a mix of Orthodox Christians and Muslims, but it's a particular sect of Shia Islam. So a guy called Bektashi was born in Iran, 13th century. He travelled very widely apparently, and then established this liberal sect of Islam, in which alcohol is permitted, women go unveiled, there's no gender divisions in the church, no strict times on prayer or fasting, and the final bit that I think is pretty important, it says above all Bektashism taught tolerance of different nations and religions. The final thing is the worldwide headquarters of the sect are in Tirana, which is capital of Albania. Aidan's making friends. That's a familiar sight, the Aussie flag and the boxing kangaroo.
If I were you, for what it's worth, I would invest in a HF radio, just to connect with people as you're sailing along. As I say, it's a highlight of nearly every day that you find out, what the boat ahead, the boat behind are experiencing, and yeah, but
they're not cheap.
For some people swear by satellite. You got an Iridium, I assume.
Yeah, we've got Iridium, so yeah.
Yep, we're just cruising, Aidan. Let's get the sails up.
Yeah.
That is Corfu.
if you like this video, please click like below and subscribe to follow our adventures.